1961, a woman by the name of Sigrid Paul had a baby in East Berlin. Okay, so over the couple of months, her baby ended up having a lot of problems. So the doctors realized that if she didn't get transferred to West Berlin, that baby was going to die. But between the time of her being, the baby being born, and then the complications, her needing to be transferred, there was a wall put up between East and West Berlin. So nobody could just cross this wall. It took a lot of advocating from the doctors to get that baby transferred over to where he could get that help he needed. But the parents weren't allowed to go. So it took months for Sigrid to get an actual visa just for a few hours to see her baby on the other side of the border. Okay, eventually she had to go back or else her husband was going to be put in jail. So that was a good reason to go back. So they tried to escape and go to West Berlin, but it didn't happen. Their plan was foiled, and they got arrested and spent 2 years in prison. Okay, so years later, an advocate on the west side of Berlin got the baby back to the east side with their parents, but not till he was 5 years old. So, this was from an article called "The Berlin Wall Kept Me from My Baby Son" by Lena Corner. I'm sorry, that's just so funny. What are the odds of that name? Anyways, so these problems and many stories like these occurred to Berliners at the morning of August 13th, 1961. Okay, so today I'll be discussing the history of the Berlin Wall and what caused it to form, what was happening during this process, and how it came to fall. Okay, so obviously the best place to start in most stories is the beginning. So this is how the Berlin Wall got started. The cause of something so big is usually for the effect of something even bigger. So the World War II ended. Germany and the Axis powers lost. Okay, so Germany was split into 4 zones occupied by the U.S., by Great Britain, and by France and the Soviet Union. Basically, it was split into West Germany, which was democratic, and East Germany, which was communism. That's what they believed. Okay. So now the West adapted to capitalist economy. They worked well for them. You know, they really improved in their economical growth very rapidly, and people were able to live well. They were able to buy different gadgets and travel as they pleased because they had the money to do it and they didn't have restrictions. According to Jennifer Rosenberg, who has a bachelor in histories and also 22 years of experience as a historian, she said this came to be known as an economical miracle. Okay, because they excelled so fast. And now the East Side, they didn't do as well in their communism. So first off the bat, the Soviet took their spoils of war from East Germany. So all the good stuff, their factory stuff, as well as valuable assets that they had, were all shipped off to Russia. So I mean that's not a great way to start a new economy, right? So eventually the economy in the East began to fail. Labor forces dwindled as young employees seen the opportunities in the West arising, so they wanted to commute over there. The population decreased dramatically between 1949 and 1961, to where about 2.7 million people fled from East Germany to the West because they were thriving so well. Now the Soviet realized they needed to find a way to save their economy, or else everything's just going to go flat and it's going to be destructive. Okay, so between the midnight of August 12th and the morning of August 13th, 1961, the Soviet Union answered by building a concrete wall with barbed wire. Okay, so imagine waking up the next day and there's a wall between North and South Abilene, and you can't cross no matter what. You're like, but you don't understand, Dr. Bailey would kill me. Well, I've got a gun. Like, well, Dr. Bailey's got, an evil stare. Ridiculous, you don't know. Anyways, so with that being said, during the time that this was all happening, the wall was in place for 28 years. As I said, it went up extremely fast, overnight, literally overnight. They cut telephone lines so communication couldn't be between West and East Berlin. They shut off railroads and any access over there through East and West Berlin. And checkpoints were created, but these were only for officials and people who got permission to cross. Which, like I said, Sigrid had got her visa just for a few hours. But as time went on, it got harder to pass and get visas for that. Over time, the wall grew more elaborate. It ended up upgrading 4 different times. According to the Berlin Wall, written by editors of Encyclopedia Britannica, the 1980s, that system of wall, electrified fences, and fortification extended 28 miles through Berlin, dividing it into East and West Berlin, as well as when going around West Berlin, 75 miles. Okay, so if you can't picture this, here's West Germany, here's East Germany. Berlin's sitting in East Germany, but they split that into West and East as well. So West Berlin was literally all surrounded by East Germany. So people would sneak into West Berlin and then get transferred into West Germany so that they were free. Okay, so this really killed the life of Berliners, especially the East Berliners. They were no longer allowed to go to soccer games, to operas, to see different stuff like that. And roughly 60,000 people in the commuted to work were unable to go back to work because their work was on the other side of the border. This lack of opportunity and splitting of families and stuff like that led to escape attempts. Okay, so people tried to scale walls, but soldiers were told to shoot anybody who goes near the walls. So people, kind of jumped off that. It got so bad that people started climbing into buildings and jumping out of, second and third story windows to get across the border. People would ram the walls with their vehicles just to bust it open and try to get through. And then also there was a story of one group who actually saved scraps of cloth to make a hot air balloon and flew over. And that's a real story. So with things going so bad and so much negativity stemming from this wall, the end had to come there, right? So here comes the fall of the wall. Communism was failing really bad. Protests were rising against leaders in Germany. So finally, the evening of November 9th, 1989, East Germany announced that there was an opportunity for East Berliners to flee to the west if they would like. Obviously, people were scared to go up to the wall. They thought maybe it was just like a ploy or a trick, or to get shot, because people would get shot at going to the wall. So they were hesitant at first. But quickly the wall filled with people singing and joining, and people destroying the wall with axes and chisels and stuff like that. And according to a Berlin Wall by the editors of History.com, more than 2 million of East and West Berliners visited West the weekend to participate in a celebration that was what one journalist wrote, the greatest street party ever. So celebrating the end of a horrible era is, if celebrating the end of a horrible era isn't like a storybook ending for you, then I'm sorry, but it's a storybook ending for me. So in conclusion, basically this all started with political views and a simple disagreement between democratic and communism. Eventually it moved to showmanship of hate and pride by the Soviet Union, who used that pride to build the wall because they didn't want their communism to fail. And finally ended with one side bowing out, but not before many lives and the history of the world was changed.